I woke up this morning with new wisdom on my mind. I know who I am. There's no need to hide. I got something to say. I'm thinking that it's time. Why? Cause I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. Pay me my respect.
You are now tuned in to the Young Intellect podcast, an open space where opinions and experiences are welcomed. Hosted by Sam and Mafwa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. We're glad to have you back, or if it's the first time you're joining us, we're glad that you're joining us on the Young Intellect podcast today.
Yes, hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As Sam said, I'm your co-host Mafwa, and if this is your first time, what's up?
And I'm your co-host Sam. I forgot to say that.
So today's discussion is going to be really interesting. So what we want to discuss is that, you know, as people, we do largely seek to understand ourselves, and sometimes we do try to understand ourselves from other people's definitions that they have for us. Like we ask people, oh, what do you think of me? And loads of people are realizing that we're social chameleons and we act how we believe others view us, as opposed to being ourselves. So for this reason, we wanted to talk about how we view ourselves and how other people view us, and also the looking glass effect, because this is a huge theme in our lives every day.
What we want to address now is how we view ourselves. If you don't really spend time with yourself, like a lot of your energy is being pulled like outward, and you're focused on other people and their definition of yourself all the time. Sometimes people focus on social media to really define themselves. And it's like your perception of yourself, for the most part, isn't really what you define yourself. It's actually what other people define you, that you've actually internalized.
Exactly. And like, why do we even view ourselves the way we do? I believe a lot of it has to do with social media, especially today. Maybe in different times or different like ages, it was really different. But today, social media really plays a huge part in why we view ourselves the way we do, because a lot of our energy is being poured outward. So we're always focused on something else that is outward in the world. Whenever like, okay, how am I feeling? Am I good? Do I need to spend time with myself? It's always like, this person did this. And social media is a tool where you're scrolling all the time and you're always looking at other people. So in doing that all the time, that's how we define ourselves. From what we pick up from other people and the world, that's how we define ourselves.
Social media tells us how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to act, and then a lot of us internalize that. And if you don't act accordingly, you might be called words like being corny or weird or whatever. So no one really wants to be called these words, I would assume. So we try to make ourselves more like acceptable.
Exactly. And social media actually ties into society's programming, because like the people who participate in social media are people from society. So people bring their views from society and whatever background or culture or wherever they grew up, and they implement them on social media, and they say, if you're not this way, you're not right. That's why we use their opinions to judge ourselves, and they're not even true. They are their opinions, so their truths, they're not our truths. And when you have society on a platform like social media that is so large and many people use, like on Facebook, I think they're like 3 billion active users. You get all of these people giving their opinions and trying to get people to act a certain way, hating on people. And it really makes you view yourself like, maybe someone disagrees with something that you like doing, and then you start viewing yourself like, oh, that's weird, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. And that's why we do act the way we do, because people are freely giving their opinions that does not relate to us.
Yeah, and like without social media, it's actually your peers around you that actually define who you are, because like people have different perceptions of you, and like their perception of you is not all the time accurate. It can be like very much altered in a way.
Yeah, it's definitely your social group and your friends, as you said, as well as other factors. But they play a huge part because, like, you could be hanging with one group of friends and, you know, you're acting a certain way because they bring out a certain side in you, social chameleon.
Another aspect of it is lack of self-love and self-confidence. Usually, if you don't have as much confidence, you're more prone to be adhere to like the version of you that is more acceptable to other people.
And I think that stems from being compared to other people. Like, people will compare you, and like, if you are being compared, you do lack self confidence, you do lack self love because you now feel like it's not okay for you to be the way you are, or you don't understand yourself properly because someone's telling you that the way you are isn't good enough. So it's like, wow, I have to be this person that they want me to be rather than being myself.
And I think sometimes the way we view ourselves is altered because some parts of ourselves are sometimes suppressed. When you suppress yourself, it's because you don't want other people to judge you. You don't want other people to say like the type of person that you are is not acceptable. And like suppression sometimes starts from like a young age when your parents are telling you like don't act like that, don't do like that. And then like I think later on in life, like the people you surround yourself with, like your friends and stuff like that, also suppress you because they don't like an aspect of you and they want you to change into a version that they're more acceptable with.
Exactly. And self suppression is very detrimental, but people do it because, you know, as kids, when you were being yourself, like maybe in a classroom, like you did something and the teacher didn't like it and the teacher told you to stop, or you're being yourself at home and your parents didn't like something and they told you to stop, or you're being yourself around an adult or maybe another kid and they didn't like it and they told you to stop. So then you start thinking these parts of yourself, there's something wrong with these parts of yourself, and you start suppressing yourself. When that happens as a kid, you carry that into your adulthood. It doesn't go away just because you grow up. These things stick with you as you grow up. And you have adults who are suppressing themselves and aren't expressing themselves properly because of what happened to them as a child.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I'm not being fully myself, not because I don't want to be myself, it's because I feel like I've suppressed myself for so long. I feel like, you know, the iceberg, and then like you see, when you see an iceberg, usually you see the tip of it and not really the overall iceberg because it's buried underwater. So that's how I feel like sometimes I act, and I don't really know how to really start to be like, to showcase my full self. I feel like I'm more than what I'm showcasing right now. And it's just like I'm starting my journey to see, but like I just don't know like exactly where to start.
And it's like practice makes perfect. For a long time, you practice suppressing yourself and not expressing yourself. So that's all you know how to do. Like, just because it wasn't the practice that you wanted to happen, it was the practice that was happening. And it's because, like, your surroundings and people are like, no, don't do this. So now it's just second nature to you to suppress yourself. So now you really, to negate that, I believe that you really just have to start practicing expressing yourself because practice makes perfect.
And another way that we kind of alter the way we view ourselves is actually through delusion. Sometimes we're very delusional about how we actually act in a way. Because I'm going to go in depth to that because we might think we act a certain way. In reality, we don't actually act that way. So we're being delusional to how we actually act. And sometimes we're in denial. Like people can tell you do act, because sometimes people can observe some part of you, like objectively, I think is the word, without bias, that like you do act a certain way that you're not aware of. And then like you're like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And oftentimes, like our insecurities actually alter the way we view ourselves. Like when we have high insecurities, we don't really view ourselves in a positive light. We're more negative towards ourselves.
And I agree with you, especially with the denial part. No one wants to really acknowledge that they have negative traits specific for themselves. Like if I have, it's because, and I know that no one wants to acknowledge it because I know I have negative traits and sometimes I completely dismiss them. I delude myself into thinking that they don't exist, but they are very much there. Like no one wants to be like, they're lazy, even though they haven't worked out and they've been telling themselves they're going to work out. They haven't done something that they've been telling themselves they're going to do. And I procrastinate a lot. That's something I do, but it's not something I want to, I'm gonna gladly admit. So people do have negative traits, but they delude themselves into thinking that, or because they don't want to address it, they delude themselves into acting like it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. And that is true. And like if somebody think I'm like nice and stuff like that, like I tend to gravitate towards a person that confirms what I already think about myself. So sometimes some people have confirmation and they gravitate towards how they actually think about themselves and not the actual true form of themselves.
I agree, because if someone says something negative about you, you're gonna be like, they don't know me, and it might not be true, but it might be true, and it's like you're not going to go towards them or gravitate towards them because you don't believe what they're saying is true. Okay, so coming off of that, introspection is really important because that's how we perceive ourselves based on our feelings, our thoughts, and our intentions. So that's basically your understanding of yourself. And no one really talks about their understanding of themselves. When they talk about themselves, they talk about other people's understanding of themselves. Like, oh, people call me stubborn, so I'm stubborn. But people never speak of themselves from their own understanding based on their thoughts, their feelings, and their intentions, which is introspection.
Mm-hmm. And an introspective perspective can actually help you to figure out what's going on with you and why you're behaving a certain way. Like it can actually help explain your external urges or like just behavior patterns that you have when you actually go deep within and look inside yourself and like explore who you are.
Exactly. It is a way of understanding yourself by looking into yourself. You're not going to understand yourself by looking to other people. People are
Exactly.
only going to tell you what they see of you. Like you were saying with the iceberg thing, you feel like people only see the tip of you. And you have a whole body that's 100 times bigger under the surface that people never get to see. So people are only telling you the parts that they see, and they might not even be right. It's from their perspective, and depending on how they feel, they're going to flip it to their perspective of you. But that might not be actually how you come across. That's how you come across to them. So introspection is very important into understanding yourself. You need to start, well, people need to start analyzing themselves from an introspective view, assessing their thoughts, feelings, and intentions rather than asking people to assess their thoughts, feelings, and intentions for them. They're not in you. You've never felt like you don't understand how someone else feels or how they understand themselves. So no one's gonna understand that for you.
You have to do that work. You have to look within yourself. You have to you actually have to want to do it first.
Yeah, because it's hard. As you said earlier, our energy's always being drawn outward, so it's hard to then practice makes perfect. If our energy's always being drawn outwards, to then look within yourself and assess yourself is really, really hard. It's not something that we're taught how to do. We're never taught how to be look at your opinion. It's always in school, say you're doing a creative piece of writing, there's always someone else judging it. Like your teacher would be like, no, I don't like this, even though that's their opinion. So we never really get to formulate our own opinions for ourselves. It's always the teacher will be like, no, change this because it should be more like this, and that's just their opinion. But we're always taught how to go off of what other people say rather than off of what we think.
Sometimes, like I was saying earlier, sometimes how we think is suppressed. Like we think like that our aspect of ourselves is actually bad because people are telling us it's bad. But sometimes people are just telling you stuff because they're not comfortable with the version of you that they see. They're not comfortable with you expressing your true form at times.
You can't really depend on what people are saying, because one day someone might see you and they say, oh, okay, she's really nice, because they're happy. But one day they might be in a bad mood and say oh, she's really annoying, because they're upset. So what people say about you is really dependent on their mood and their introspective view of, well, what they're feeling or what they're going through at that point in time. So you can't really always take things from people and say yeah, this is true, this is me, because it's really not true. It depends on their emotions. It depends on their feelings, and feelings change.
Exactly. That is true. Feelings change like the wind. The wind blows in one direction 1 minute and it blows in a different direction the next minute. Like, feelings are not permanent. Well, sometimes they are, but not all the time they're permanent.
Exactly, like the water, like it runs, like it's always, your feelings are always on the move. Like you never feel the same way throughout your whole life, or even throughout the day. Throughout the day, your feet, like your emotions, your mood changes. So
Piggybacking off of that, do you think you look different from what you see and what other people see when they look at you?
um definitely. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what does this person see? And like, why are they like acting this way? Like, sometimes I feel like it goes both ways. It's not just the negative. Sometimes it's positive. Like, sometimes, like, yeah, this person doesn't see me for who I am. They like don't understand how cute I am. It's
Period.
like they like I'm just like, yeah, they don't know what they're missing out on. But sometimes I'm like, what does this person actually see in me? Like, am I really these things that they're saying? Like, am I really that nice? Am I really that cute? So it's like, it goes both ways, you know? So definitely, I do have a different description for myself or view of myself than for what other people see of me.
That is true. I would say the same thing too. And sometimes I think like we're much harsher on ourselves and stuff like that. That's probably why we're like, oh, what do they see in us or whatever. And I also remember watching this Dove commercial. There was a painter and he was like asking people to describe how they look and then he'll paint them. And then after he asked someone that briefly met the person to describe how they looked, and then he painted that person and then he brought the individual to a wall for them to look at both of the paintings. One of the paintings, the painting that actually was painted by the other person that met them, actually looked better than the painting that the person described that they looked like. And it really comes into the fact that we're much harsher on ourselves.
And that's very true because, like, you know, it's as I said, like the fact that we have social media, like it makes you judge yourself against other people. So like sometimes you see someone else and you're like, they're so beautiful, but they're like judging themselves, like, oh, I wish I was more like this person. I wish I had more of this. And it's like, it's very true. Yeah. So why do you think people actually seek approval from other people?
I think people seek approval sometimes for confirmation, to confirm that they're not abnormal, to confirm that they're actually not unusual. In a way, there's like a negative or bad connotation associated with being different. So a lot of people don't really want to be viewed as different because it's like, oh, you're like, when people say you're different, they're not like being positive. They're not saying you're different. They're like, oh, you're different. Like, there's a different tone. If you didn't notice, I try to use a different tone to really dictate like you're different. So sometimes I feel like people seek confirmation that they're like normal.
We turn outwards for confirmation. And I believe seeking approval really stems from not knowing who you are. In life, people really try to find who they are. If you don't know who you are, it's very hard to live. So what people try to do is find who they are. And one way to do it is to, when you are not taught to go within, is to go without. So you turn to other people. When people seek approval, they don't go around intentionally like, okay, wait, they don't wake up and say, I'm going out to seek approval today because I don't know myself and I want to be I want to feel like I fit in. It's a subconscious thing. We subconsciously seek approval. It's not like people wake up and like, oh, I'm seeking approval today. It's something that you do in the way you act, the way you view others. You kind of change yourself, or like you do things to fit in. And I think that's why we seek approval, because we really just are so detached from who we are. We want to learn more about ourselves. We want to feel at one with ourselves and at one with other people. So we go out of ourselves to find that, but it can't be found outside of you.
And I think like it's also like interesting how we view other people. How we view other people is very different from how we view ourselves. How we view ourselves sometimes, like when we make mistakes, there's a thing called a fundamental attribution error. It's like when people make mistakes, they usually say like, okay, their mistakes are made because of like external factors outside of them. And then, but if they look at other people making the same mistakes that they've made, they're gonna say the mistake is because of that person. That person didn't do this correctly. They have no skills. That's why they make the mistakes. They won't use outside factors to determine like why other people make mistakes.
And that's very true. We don't hold people to the same standards we hold ourselves. We're nicer to other people in the places that we're harsher to ourselves, and we're harsher to other people in the places that we're nicer to ourselves. Like, as you were saying, like if someone makes a mistake, we'll judge them a lot more harshly, or not even a mistake. If they do something, we'll judge them a lot more harshly. But if that same thing was done to us, it would be like it wasn't in our control. It's really not our fault, and we'll give ourselves a break. But other people, like, we tend to jump a little bit ahead and judge them and not put ourselves in their position. But also we tend to, like, sometimes when we judge ourselves really harshly, when we're giving advice to other people, sometimes we're softer on them, but when it's for us, it's like we're a lot more harsh on ourselves. So I think it's kind of flipped in a way too.
Like it's like a double standard either way. Hold for like for how we view others and how we view ourselves.
And also, most of the time, we act how we think someone thinks that we act. So let me put this into perspective. With us, with you, I won't be myself with you. It'll be like I will act how I think you expect me to act. And there's a term for that, and it's called the looking glass self. And many people do this. And I remember first hearing this in a video by Jay Shetty. He was a monk. he did 3 years in a monk school, and he said it, and I heard it, and I was just like, wow, it's so true. Because sometimes I find myself saying, is this how this person expects me to act? And I'll like try fit in a way that they expect me to act rather than just being myself.
Yeah, and it's said to only be like the looking glass only really takes place in a social setting. You won't really be thinking about how does this person view me when you're by yourself. You're obviously gonna think about how does person view you when you're around other people. And it's basically like the basic concept of it is like someone imagines, or I imagine how others might think of me, and then like I internalize that and react in a way that I think they think of me.
Exactly. So you're not even acting as who you are, and you're not even acting as what they think you are. You're acting in who you think they think you are. So you're not even being who you are or they think you are. You're acting in a thought of a thought. So it's so crazy, like, that we do this. And I think we have to assess society really. Like, if we're producing people who think like this, we have to assess like why we're producing them, what is happening within society that we're producing people who have to act in not as themselves, but try act in the thought of what they think other people think they are.
I think sometimes it's like self-doubt, because I've had that experience as well, like with my program in Cali and stuff like that. So I worked in research, but I worked with like people that were like way more experienced than me. So I had like kind of like an imposter syndrome mixed with the looking glass self. And basically, like with my job, I would actually say, oh, they're probably thinking this way about me, and I would react in a way that I think they're probably thinking about me, but like it's not even true. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, like it's okay to make mistakes," or like we're new to that afterwards. But like within like whenever we had like meetings where I had to present, like I just felt like I was being judged all the time for some reason.
And the thing is, that process that you felt like you're always feeling judged isn't something that you were born with. It was something that was handed to you from society. Like, it's something that you picked up with your experiences. And it's not just you, it's me and like everybody else who's going through this. We weren't born judging ourselves. We weren't born down ourselves. It was something that we picked up as we go through life. So like, it's so important to assess like, what are we doing that makes people feel that way and creates people who have to react like this and have to assume these judgments of themselves. Like, what is it that we're doing that creates this? We don't as people, we're really busy assessing things outside of ourselves. Like, we're going to the moon and like we're creating all of these technologies. However, we're suffering as human beings, as individuals. We're suffering as human beings individually, and no one's wanting to address that. And it's very important that we assess this, because it's going on within so many people. So many people are assessing themselves in the thoughts of what they think other people view them as, and that's not normal.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not normal, but it's become normal, to be honest. Like, it's what we're used to, like what we've known mostly our whole life. Like, it's like, how do you break away from something that you've been doing subconsciously your whole life? Like, no one takes the time to be like, let me think about like my actions, or like the way I view other people, or the way I internalize how other people view me. No one actually takes the time to be like, let me do that.
And that's very true. We're very caught up on, other things, because like the society we do live in, we do need money to survive, and food and a shelter. And like, other things are put in front of our face that seem a lot more intriguing than dealing with ourselves, like money, a house, chasing this, being famous. Like, even famous people are going through this, and like there's like, they are like, they're lost as well. So we have to understand all of these things that we're chasing outside of ourselves doesn't ever change the fact that you will be lost, or you will never be yourself if you don't address it. And it's something that we have to realize is it's nothing that comes with a manual, because no one has ever really been like, okay guys, let's deal with this. It's nothing that comes with a manual. We have a manual for a rocket ship that flies into space, but we don't have a manual to deal with self-doubt.
And I do agree, like, when you look at like women, something was like, women don't dress to impress men, they dress to impress other women. Because, like, I'm just thinking about the looking glass phenomena, because they think other women are judging them based on whatever they wear, or whatever, however they look, so they dress to impress women.
Like, women dress to compete with other women, not to like catch the man's attention. Like, oh, what's she wearing? I hope she doesn't wear the same dress as, like, at prom. Like, I hope she don't wear the same dress as me.
Yep.
Like yeah, it's a thing. Like, men will take women however they come if they really like women. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's not a man woman thing. It's really a self to self thing, and like, we see women as our other self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I guess like sometimes it can be viewed as in like a competition or whatever. You have to upstage the next person. Okay, there's different ways that like we are kind of viewed in the world. Is the way we view ourselves, like we've discussed before, the way other people view us, and the way we think other people view us. So it's just like these three components kind of like sometimes might clash or like come together to really like help us define ourselves in society, even though if it's not really the true us, but they contribute to us defining ourselves in a social setting.
Exactly. And if one of those is out of balance, all of those will be out of balance. If you don't view yourself correctly, you can't view other people correctly, and other people can't view you like how you think you should be viewed, or whatever. So it's very important that we do work on the self. And so many people, including me, we're working on outside projects outside of ourselves, yet we don't know who we are. And it's crazy that we come to this earth and like we have this whole lifetime and we never once seek to find who we are or address our personal issues. It's always I have to do something outside of myself. I have to make money, or there's this new technology, I have to develop it for this company, or like the new drugs coming out, I have to research into this, or whatever it is you do. And it's like we have to take the time to understand ourselves and understand why we do certain things and understand other people, because without this, we're really running around like headless chickens, just doing what other people tell us to do, because we can never really do what we need to do for ourselves if we never learn ourselves.
And a good way to start maybe is journaling, writing down some things about yourself, just working within, or probably meditation or mindfulness can help you start being more aware of yourself and actually who you are.
Exactly. Like, go into yourself. Like, if there's something that you need to work on yourself, don't ask, like, you can ask other people for guidance. That's totally fine. But don't ask other people for the answer, because they can't go within you and find the answer. It's going to be you working on yourself.
Don't rely on other people to tell you who you are, because honestly, you spend most of your life with yourself. Actually, all your life with yourself. Like, if you're 30 or 22, like, you've been with yourself 22 years. I mean, like 5 or 6 of them you really didn't know. But at the same time, like, you've been with yourself the longest, so you should know yourself more.
Exactly. Like, no one's going to be able to tell you anything about yourself the way you can tell about yourself. And maybe you have deluded yourself, as we said in the beginning. So that's why it is good to have other people's perspective to help align you. But, don't seek approval from outside, because you will never be satisfied, because they don't know what you need to feel wanted.
And if you do, like, ask for other people for a perception of you, like, try to get an unbiased one.
Don't take it as, oh, that is who I am. Take it as that is a part of me. Like, they can't tell you all of who you are.
Okay, the lesson for today is that you are not what people say or think you are. You are far greater than that. You are not even what you say or think you are yourself. And you are greater than that as well. You're greater than, sometimes you're greater than your comprehensions.
Yeah, you are greater than what you can comprehend. So stop living in the thoughts of what you think you are, and stop living in the thoughts of what you think other people think you are, and really just start being yourself. Sometimes the thoughts of yourself will hold you back, because you think you have to be stuck as this specific person, stuck in these ways, and those thoughts hold you back. So just stop thinking what other people think, stop thinking what you think, and just be who you are. We must learn to stop restricting ourselves and being in our heads, because we are greater than our thoughts.
Thank you for joining us today on the Young Intellect Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and tell a friend to tell a friend about us. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Young Intellect Pod. And then take care of yourself. We'll see you at the next episode. We won't actually see you, but you'll hear us in the next episode.
Peace.
'Cause I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect.